Let's get into it now. A spoiler-free movie review of Scream 7. The road to this movie was atrocious. It was a bumpy ride to say the least. Melissa Barrera, who I really enjoy, I thought she brought a breath of fresh air into a franchise that really needed it, was fired from this movie. Jenna Ortega left this movie. When they were out, I, in essence, was out too because I feel their energy, their dynamic made this franchise worthy of my time again, which the first two are great, three and four, meh, but them coming back in five, even the naming of five kind of annoys me. They called it Scream, but it was really Scream 5. That was the requel. It brought the meta-ness back. It brought all the elements back that I loved about the first one and modernized it with a great cast. But with them out, and now them trying to say, "Oh, Nev Campbell is back." Well, she was back in 5 too. She was only not in 6. I just felt this entire movie was rushed. There was no heart in any element of the storytelling in Scream 7, and it was even worse than I thought. What this movie is about, you have Nev Campbell, who I really enjoy. She paved the way for these movies. I'm a Nev Campbell fan, but I just think the writing did her so wrong in this movie. It's about her moving away, changing her name, trying to get away from her past completely. She has a daughter now named Tatum, who is at the same age that Sydney was in the first movie, and they try to make a big deal about that. It's happening again. So Sydney's worst nightmare is coming to life because the killer is back, and now the killer is going after her daughter. Sydney and Tatum have a troubled relationship because Sydney is very guarded about her past, doesn't want to tell her about all the death that has followed her, and wants to keep her daughter as safe as possible. The thing I found the most unbearable about this movie is how much it leans into the lore of Scream and reminding you about all the characters. The way that everybody in this town treats Sydney like she's some local celebrity that everybody knows and everybody focuses on, that just doesn't feel like reality to me. These don't take place in the real world, which the first movies did. That was great about those movies. And those movies with Wes Craven broke the mold on a genre that was dead. And I think we forget that when Scream came out, it was so groundbreaking because the slasher movies were oversaturated in the 80s. Everybody got tired of them. But when Scream came around, it had that 90s edge. It was meta, it was aware of itself, it was poking fun at the formula of horror movies, and it changed the game. But now, with Scream 7, it is going against everything that was created in the original movie, and now just being this really weird regurgitation, scraping the barrel for any kind of nostalgia, any kind of just, we have this IP, we got to do something with it. And it just feels so forced at this point. There's nothing new to follow. Ghostface is probably the worst version we've ever had. The mask looks off, which the thing I loved about Scream 5 is they had like the weathering on the mask. It looked old and torn. And when it comes to Scream 7, the mask looks like they just walked down to Walgreens, grabbed a Scream mask off the rack, and got that person on set. The only time this movie ever felt good was in the opening scene, which was a lot of what we saw in the trailer and what made me excited for the movie because I thought this movie was going to have more of an edge. I thought Ghostface was going to be this hardcore villain and really causing some death and destruction. But outside of that opening scene, nothing else felt like a horror movie. It all just felt like a parody of itself. That opening scene did create some tension, and I think it's because it really had nothing to do with the Scream franchise, aside from the fact that you have two people renting out an Airbnb that is dedicated to the original murders. It's still meta because they are talking about the stab movies and about Sidney Prescott and giving you the backstory. So just in case you haven't seen a Scream movie, they kind of tell you everything, even though that opening scene is still a little bit cheesy. I found it worked. It felt like a horror movie. But the rest of the movie just felt like a soap opera with some people dying here and there. There was really only one creative kill in the entire thing. And even that was more creative in the sense that it got a bit of a chuckle out of me. Everything else was by the book, no imagination to be had. It tried to make a small comment on AI, which just felt completely crowbarred in. That didn't work for me. I don't think necessarily anybody in it was a bad actor. I just think they had a really bad script to work with because I wasn't buying into Nev Campbell's performance. Courtney Cox did nothing for me, and they had to over explain all these reasons that the people inside of this story can still exist. And I feel like as a franchise, once you get to that point, it is time to hang some things up. Move on from this story. You can keep Ghostface. But if they continue to harp on the Sidney Prescott storyline, there is going to be no other story to tell ever. And it's going to get me, who is a casual Scream fan, to really write off this franchise because I don't want to see it again. I would rather them move on completely. They need to burn it all to the ground, much like Ghostface did in that opening scene. That part in the trailer just had me hype. It gave me hope, a false sense of hope that more crazy things like that were gonna happen, but nothing else topped the opening scene. So I think they need to burn it all to the ground, forget about Sidney Prescott because it really just feels like what Halloween did with Laurie Strode. But Sidney Prescott is nowhere near the level of a Laurie Strode. I think they need to let that character go, move it to a new town, create a whole new story. Because Ghostface is a great character, but it is limited so much by still trying to play in this box. It's gonna be like we're watching the Stab movies inside of the movie at this point. Because throughout the entire thing, the humans don't feel like humans. At no point whatsoever was I buying Joe McHale as a cop. He plays Sidney Prescott's husband and Tatum's dad. There are some people who should just not be cast as cops. Joe McHale is one of them, and I'm a fan of Joe McHale. I love him in Community. I love him just as an actor, but did not work for me whatsoever in Scream 7 because when I saw him in his cop uniform trying to be the person in control over all these situations, I could only see Jeff Winger making jokes, wearing a leather jacket, and talking crap on Britta, Troy, and Abed. I could not see Joe McHale as a serious cop, and that was a major problem for me. I really think this movie represents, and it wasn't probably its intention, but it represents everything that is wrong in the movie industry right now and everything we hate about reboots and sequels and studios just wanting to sell us the same thing over and over again because that is what we got with Scream 7. We got nothing new. We got the same thing essentially we got in Scream 5 and 6 minus the best parts. I did enjoy, however, Mason Gooding, who is Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son. I think out of everybody in this cast, he was the best actor and the only person who I thought, okay, that is somebody I would actually like to hear more of their story and see them a little bit more in the main plot line of these films because I like him a lot. Aside from everyone else, scrap it. So for Scream 7, I say don't waste your time seeing it in theaters. If you have been committed to this franchise for a long time and invested since the 90s and have seen every single Scream movie like I have, maybe it's worth it. But for Scream 7, I give it 2 out of 5 knives.